Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. ABP Raiven Brown experiences pregnancy scare. Alaskan bush people star Raiven Brown just scared her fans when she made a post about a recent pregnancy scare. Raiven, who is pregnant with her third child, has a history of difficult pregnancies. When she said she was heading into the ER for pregnancy issues, fans grew concerned. Here is what Raiven said has happened and what it all means for her pregnancy. Raiven Brown heads to ER with pregnancy concerns. Raiven Brown posted on her Instagram stories that she had to head into the ER due to pregnancy concerns. She then shared a photo of her with some medical devices on her stomach. According to the reality TV star, she wanted to ensure nothing was wrong with her baby. She wrote on the photo, "I hate going to the ER, but baby has not moved a ton, so they wanted me to go in. With his cord issues and stuff, just want to be sure he is all good." This got fans worried since Raiven has a history of troubled pregnancies. It seems plenty of people posted their worries to Raiven, so she had to follow up with a secondary post. Raiven Brown has a history of troubled pregnancies. It would make sense that Alaskan bush people fans would be worried about Raiven Brown going to the ER for her pregnancy. This is because she has struggled in all of her past pregnancies. When Raiven and Bear Brown welcomed their first child, River, he was born early and had to remain in the hospital to ensure his health. It was a tough pregnancy, but things worked out well for them. He has since grown into a healthy child. However, Raiven then suffered a miscarriage in her second pregnancy, and this was a tough moment for the young woman to deal with. Despite the tragedy, Raiven and Bear pushed on and got pregnant again. Their rainbow baby, Cove, was another hard pregnancy. Raiven ended up on months of bed rest at the end of the pregnancy, and Cove was also born prematurely. Cove ended up needing to remain on oxygen for the first week of his life, while Raiven was also kept in the hospital. Sadly, Bear and Raiven had problems at that time, and he left her alone with the two children and returned to Washington after Cove's birth. This pregnancy has seemed much better. Raiven and Bear are back together and went to Texas, where there are better NICU hospitals than in their home in Washington. Raiven has not mentioned forced bed rest, and things seem to be going well until this recent message. Raiven Brown sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling as they rested on her swollen belly. The room was quiet, save for the muffled sounds of rain tapping against the window. The world outside was in turmoil, but inside, within the four walls of this sanctuary, an even greater storm was brewing. Raiven had always prided herself on her strength. Growing up in the rugged Alaskan wilderness, she had learned early on that survival wasn't just about physical endurance, it was about mental fortitude, about pushing through the pain, the cold, the fear. But nothing in her life had prepared her for this, for the uncertainty, for the paralyzing fear that now gripped her heart. The pregnancy had been a surprise, but a welcome one. When she and Bear first found out, there was joy, overwhelming joy. They had faced so many challenges together, his battles with his past, her struggles with trust and vulnerability. But this child was a symbol of their love, of their resilience, a new beginning, a fresh start. But with that joy came a heavy weight, an unspoken fear that had been lurking in the back of her mind ever since she saw the two pink lines on the pregnancy test. What if something went wrong? What if this was too good to be true? The first few months had been smooth. Regular checkups, glowing reports from the doctor, and a growing belly that made her feel connected to this new life in a way she had never imagined. She had started planning, dreaming of the future, of a little one running around the homestead, learning to fish, to hunt, to survive in the wild just like she and Bear had. But then, about a week ago, things had changed. It started with a dull ache, a pain that she dismissed at first as just a normal part of pregnancy. She had heard that your body goes through so many changes, and a bit of discomfort was to be expected. But the ache didn't go away. It got worse, more insistent. And then one morning, she woke up to find a small spot of blood. Panic set in like a wave crashing over her. She had rushed to the bathroom, trying to calm herself, telling herself it was nothing, that spotting was normal. But as the day went on, the pain intensified and the bleeding didn't stop. It was then that the fear she had been trying to keep at bay came crashing down on her. Bear was out, away from the homestead, dealing with some repairs before the winter set in. She was alone with her thoughts, her fears, and this unbearable pain. She debated calling him, but what could he do? And what if it was nothing? She didn't want to worry him unnecessarily. But what if it wasn't nothing? What if something was wrong? Raiven had always been independent, fiercely so. But in that moment, she felt more vulnerable than she ever had in her life. She wanted to be strong, to push through the pain like she always had. But this was different. This wasn't just about her. This was about the tiny life growing inside of her. A life that she had already grown to love more than she ever thought possible. The hours dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity. She lay on the bed, curled up on her side, willing the pain to go away, praying for the bleeding to stop. She thought about calling the doctor, but the nearest clinic was miles away, and she didn't know if she could make the journey in her current state. And what if they told her what she was dreading to hear? What if she was losing the baby? As the day turned into night, the storm outside grew stronger, the rain pounding against the window, the wind howling through the trees. It was as if the world outside was mirroring the turmoil inside her. She could feel herself slipping, the fear overwhelming her, pulling her under. But then, as the clock struck midnight, something changed. The pain, which had been so intense, so all-consuming, began to ease. The bleeding, which had been steady, started to slow. It was as if the storm was passing, the worst of it over. She still felt weak, exhausted, but the fear that had gripped her heart began to loosen its hold. Raiven knew she wasn't out of the woods yet. There was still so much uncertainty, so many questions left unanswered, but for the first time in days, she allowed herself to hope. She allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. She reached for her phone, her hands still trembling, and sent a message to Bear. She didn't go into detail, didn't want to worry him too much. But she told him she needed him, that she needed him to come home. As she lay back on the bed, her hand resting on her belly, she felt a small kick, a gentle reminder that the life inside her was still fighting, still holding on. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear this time, but of relief, of gratitude. The crisp Alaskan air carried a sense of foreboding as Raiven Brown, a familiar face from the popular show Alaskan Bush People, ABP, stood in the threshold of uncertainty. The wilderness, usually a place of solace and strength for the Brown family, now felt heavy with the weight of a different kind of challenge, a potential pregnancy scare that threatened to change everything. Raiven had always been a pillar of resilience, a woman who had embraced the harsh realities of life in the Alaskan bush with grace and determination. Her journey with Bear Brown, known for his wild spirit and untamed energy, had been anything but conventional. Their love story, much like the untamed wilderness that surrounded them, was filled with highs and lows, storms and rainbows. But today, as she looked out over the snow-covered peaks and the endless expanse of forest, Raiven felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. It wasn't the kind of fear she was used to, the kind that came with braving the elements or surviving in the wild. This was a different kind of fear, one that gnawed at her heart and mind, leaving her feeling exposed and uncertain. For the past few weeks, Raiven had noticed subtle changes in her body. She had chalked them up to the stress of filming, the demands of life in the bush, and the ever-present challenges of raising her young son, River. But as the days passed, the symptoms became harder to ignore. Nausea in the morning, a persistent fatigue that no amount of rest could shake off, and an emotional roller coaster that seemed to have no end. These were signs she knew all too well. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was she pregnant again? The thought both excited and terrified her. The experience of carrying River had been a beautiful but challenging journey, one that had brought her and Bear closer together while also testing their relationship in ways they hadn't anticipated. The idea of going through it all again was daunting, especially with the added pressures of their unconventional lifestyle.